Day 40, downtown Charlottetown. I woke up a little early. Looking up through the windows of my beast, I could see the sun shining over me. It was time to get my day started, and I was excited to be in one of the two provinces I have never been to before. Like my entire trip so far, everything was completely spontaneous, so I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I would be going clockwise throughout Prince Edward Island. After my daily routine, I fired up my beast and headed out to the road. After driving a short but scenic drive, I stopped by Naufrage Beach. This beach was on the northern end of the island, and one thing I have learned quickly about Prince Edward Island is that I was always close to the ocean, and it was always very windy. As I arrived at the parking spot, I came across another visitor who walked onto the beach with what looked like a lawn chair and a book. Although I myself am a Maritimer, I thought it was odd that someone would sit on a lawn chair and read the book while facing the ocean and all of its fury. But then again, this was a province I've never been to before, so certainly there would be some customs I've not been exposed to. I walked along the pier of Naufrage Beach in poor condition, like much of the infrastructure around Atlantic Canada. The waves battered this pier, and exposed concrete was broken in many areas. I walked a similar path to the other visitor, now seemingly far in the distance, and attempted to enjoy the hard, saltwater laden wind in my face. I didn't stay for long as I wanted to continue exploring the island, so I fired off my beast and off I went. I continued driving until I hit the East Point Lighthouse. This was the easternmost point of Prince Edward Island. The rustic wooden shake siding had signs of advanced aging, likely due to its proximity to the ocean. I could see streaks staining its white painted exterior, giving the building an East Coast character. Typical of many buildings in Atlantic Canada, it was shaped like a rectangle with very short overhangs and tall, thin windows. On the grounds of the East Point Lighthouse were other visitors, which I was glad to see, viewing the beautiful oceanside surroundings. While the gift shop was open, I didn't actually enter, so I wasn't able to see if the lighthouse itself was open. Standing outside and peering up, I could only imagine how difficult and tight of a spot it would have been to ascend to the top of the tower. It was great to see that despite the economic hardships Atlantic Canada has faced for decades, they still took very good care of their heritage buildings. Driving around Prince Edward Island meant that I was always close to the ocean, and this quaint little province was much more scenic than I expected it to be. I wasn't expecting to see such beautiful rolling hills alongside the roads. After driving for a while, I ended up at another lighthouse. This was the Souris Historic Lighthouse. This was located in a beautifully manicured lot adjacent to the ferry leading to the Magdalen Islands of Quebec. I walked around the beautiful lighthouse overlooking the southeastern section of Prince Edward Island. I peered over to the Atlantic Ocean to see if I could catch a glimpse of a whale, but I saw nothing. It was cool to see that this was the place I would have to go to in the future when I visit the Magdalen Islands. As I was walking around the lighthouse, I did notice that someone was actually inside the lighthouse itself. I entered and found a young girl who served as an attendant for guests. She said that entry to explore the lighthouse, which acts as a museum, was at a minimal cost should I decide to explore further. I paid the fees and ventured up into the very tight quarters of this lighthouse. I found a number of interesting artifacts, many of whom were absolutely original in their original condition, and even well over 100 years old. Peering out of the windows allowed me to view the surroundings at elevation without having to deal with the high winds. I was truly surprised by how beautiful Prince Edward Island has been. I've only been here a few days and it was absolutely stunning. I ventured further up to the top until I reached an automated lamp. It was quite steep and rather difficult to fit my large figure through these tight spaces. On the lower section, I was able to see one of the original lighthouse lamps, which had a functional switch and motor. It was really cool to see how this lighthouse museum was set up. In one of the small rooms in the lighthouse was a display of different types of sea glass and sand. I didn't know much about the types of sand in the area or anything about sea glass, but there was so much on display that it left my mind saturated. After enjoying my time exploring the Souris Historic Lighthouse, I returned to my beast to see what else I could find on this coastal drive throughout Prince Edward Island. I drove along until I found signs leading to another lighthouse. I thought it would be cool just to check that out as well. After all, I had no obligations, so why not? I ended up at the Cape Bear Lighthouse. Again, the grounds were very well maintained and this time a bit more family friendly with cute little boats and miniature lighthouses for children to play in, as well as picnic tables for people to enjoy lunch while overlooking the ocean. This particular lighthouse seemed to be a bit shorter in height and not as elaborate as the previous Souris Historic Lighthouse. However, there was a woman dressed in a period outfit inviting others to come into the lighthouse and see its interior. My mind was still saturated with all of my findings from the Souris Historic Lighthouse, so I declined. But I knew that I would return one day to check it out. I didn't spend too much time here, just took a few beautiful photos of the rocky red cliffs while discovering a young couple enjoying themselves along the shoreline. Every corner of Prince Edward Island was simply beautiful. I returned to my beast, fired her up, and headed counterclockwise to continue exploring this lovely little province. I was driving along when I seen signs for a ferry to Nova Scotia. I also seen a lineup of cars, so I had to check it out. I was completely unaware of a ferry that was shuttling vehicles directly from Prince Edward Island to Nova Scotia. A short detour led to the Wood Islands Lighthouse. The Wood Islands Lighthouse was on a large, sprawling hill overlooking a cliff. The lighthouse design, like all other lighthouses, was very unique in its own sense. The Wood Islands Lighthouse had a definitive taper and was relatively short at 2 stories. It was open to the public to view the interior. But again, like before, my mind was already saturated from the previous visit to the Souris Historic Lighthouse. Not to be forgotten though, I knew that I would visit when I returned to Prince Edward Island in the future. I walked around the grounds around the lighthouse, enjoying the wind blowing in my face and watching the ferry prepare to bring people to my home province of Nova Scotia. This was a scene I would remember forever. I was standing by the cliff, looking at the lighthouse and the ferry beyond while I felt the ocean breeze all around me. It was great to be here. I returned to my beast and continued onwards to my next destination. A quick search of the area led me to another historic lighthouse, the Point Prim Lighthouse, which was not too far away. I drove over, and again it was nice how everything on Prince Edward Island was so close by. While most lighthouses I've seen so far were built on elevated cliffs, the Point Prim Lighthouse was built close to a shore, not too elevated compared to the sea level. It was also quite interesting how it was the only circular brick lighthouse in all of Canada. Point Prim was quite special, even amongst other lighthouses for its design. While there were tours available, I declined to participate in the tour and explored the grounds instead. The grounds were immaculate, as with all other lighthouses I visited previously. Numerous plaques in both English and French were on display to show the history and heritage of not only the Point Prim Lighthouse, but Prince Edward Island in general. The history of Prince Edward Island was a history with challenges, but like the remainder of Atlantic Canada, the people came together to build a strong, vibrant community on this beautiful land. I wanted to freeze this moment where I looked up at the Point Prim Lighthouse with the beautiful Prince Edward Island sky in the background. I didn't stay for very long as I wanted to return to the capital of Charlottetown and explore the city. I returned to the province's capital a short drive later. I arrived here late last night. I didn't have the opportunity to explore the city itself. I arrived in downtown Charlottetown, found a place to park, and walked around. I came across Victoria Row on the famous Queen Square area. This reminded me of the pedestrian only area in St. John, New Brunswick I visited earlier, or the vibrant pedestrian only area of Mont-Royal in Montreal. I did walk down the street to check things out, and again, I found numerous shops with the Anne of Green Gables theme. In the distance, I saw spires that belonged to a church, so naturally, I was inclined to see the church up close. After wandering for a bit, I came across the church itself. This was St. Dunstan's Basilica. Right at the heart of Charlottetown was a beautiful basilica with twin spires and Gothic architecture. It seemed a little out of place given how trendy the street was just adjacent to this church, but I suppose it was here first. I didn't enter as it was closed during the time, but it was still a sight to see. I continued to wander through the streets, coming across an interesting mural that displayed the cultural history of Prince Edward Island's fishing industry. Parts of Charlottetown weren't as clean as other provincial capitals, but it was definitely nicer and cleaner than Fredericton. I also came across a monument reminding me that freedom isn't free, and young men sacrifice themselves for the greater good of humanity. Walking back towards Queen's Square, I found a large group of spectators waiting for something to arrive. I wasn't sure what it was, and I wanted to cross the street. I inadvertently blocked a woman's view, and she seemed quite upset about this. Naturally, everyone would know that I'm a visitor again. I was walking around with my red cowboy hat, something absolutely nobody does in this part of Canada. Another spectator told me that there was the March of the Crows. This was some sort of parade with an artful theme of black crows. I watched as local people dressed up as crows passed by, making strange noises and dressed up in strange ways. Perhaps I didn't stand out so much after all. Regardless, it was great to see the people of Prince Edward Island coming together to enjoy the summer, despite the restrictions in place. There were so many uncanny looking characters in this parade, I couldn't help but laugh. I truly enjoyed being part of this group of people. For some reason, I felt like I was part of the crowd, part of the locals, part of the people of Prince Edward Island. I have felt lonely throughout this trip, not having much contact with anyone aside from emails and text messages to people I needed to remain in contact with back in Victoria. I haven't spoken much to anyone throughout my travels, and I didn't make any new friends. But at this very time and place, I didn't feel alone. I felt like I was part of Prince Edward Island. While I have truly enjoyed the cities I've been to previously, such as Toronto, Montreal, and Quebec City, all cities which I knew I could easily live in sometime in the future, here I was in Charlottetown, feeling connected to everyone around me. Standing amongst a group of strangers, I felt surrounded by people who were connected to me. As the parade ended and went past an area I was not familiar with, I headed down towards the water, a place where I always felt at home. At the boardwalk, I came across a love lock sculpture. Here, lovers can place locks freely to signify how their love is locked together for all of eternity. Or at least until city workers remove the locks or the locks erode from saltwater. It was a beautiful view, looking into the Northumberland Strait and beyond as the sun began to set over Charlottetown. After enjoying my time at the boardwalk, I headed back towards my beast. I came across another interesting sight. At a storefront window was a plaque saying, "Love is love." During this pandemic, I have seen people divided everywhere. people with different views on vaccinations, politics, boundaries, and so on, families and friendships, and people were broken during this time. Yet here I was in Charlottetown, of all places. I could find that people here share love. I headed back to my beast, taking one last photo. This was Charlottetown City Hall, all lit up for the people to enjoy.
Thank you for sharing in my experience. If you enjoyed my video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would truly appreciate you sharing my video on your social network as it helps my channel grow. Be sure to check my playlist to see different categories on my exciting adventures I'm sharing with the world. Life is an adventure. Let's share this experience together.